Hey everybody, how are you? This is Peter again for MLB Trade Rumors and Discussions. Today we are going to talk about football. We're going to continue this a lot, and I'm going to start talking about other sports again with that. I'm a Grizzly shirt on for NBA, but we're going to talk about a lot. I'm just going to get into this more and more. Today I want to talk about the Dolphins quarterback situation, and then I want to talk about my Arizona Cardinals rivalry with the San Francisco 49ers, and we'll go over the 49ers team in a second. However, let's start with the Miami Dolphins. If you guys remember last year, there was a big talk, right, saying, what are the Dolphins going to do? Can they get a steal and get Josh Rosen? I was one of those guys who said, are you ridiculous? Get rid of Rosen. I don't care what we have to get rid of. I'm dying for Kyler Murray. And you had all these, experts come out and say, Kyler Murray's too small. He's going to get killed once he gets hit by a lineman. He doesn't have it. All these things right there, which they really know. So a lot of Arizona fans wanted Murray, right? We wanted this, we knew whoever really watched the Cardinals watched guys who can understand that it wasn't just the offensive line. Rosen just seemed to he has this thing about him. He has the likability of a root canal, right? This guy just doesn't have it. He reminds me of Jay Cutler with just less talent. Don't get me wrong, his accuracy is good, but he just seems to he's not able to get to the next level. And you've seen that in Arizona. He's the type of guy that makes mistakes and it doesn't look like it bothers him afterwards, right? It's always somebody else's fault. And then he has this arrogance about him. And I don't know what it is, but he will never be a successful guy until he's able to fix this. He does have great accuracy. There's times you see, wow, this guy can play. But that doesn't matter. There is no way this man should have lost his Dolphin quarterback position last year. He had a whole big chance to do his thing last year with Parker and everybody to at least try. And he just got beat out by Ryan Fitzpatrick, who looked like Fitzpatrick was in his 20s fighting for a job instead of being in his towards the end of his career. Fitzpatrick was doing things that Rosen should have been doing, right? He was diving, running hard, playing his ass off, and Rosen just doesn't have that. So if you get beat out by Fitzpatrick at that time in his career, that says something. That says something about Rosen. And you know what? The Dolphins are going to go after a quarterback now. Whether they're going to go after Herbert or Tua, whatever you want, whoever they're going to go for, I'm not even sure yet, right? But they're going for a quarterback, and that's going to be the second time that Rosen gets screwed. Okay? This is going to happen to him continuously, and it's going to wind up being soon. He's just going to be a backup for so many teams before this guy winds up going to the XFL. He just doesn't have it. The only way he has a shot is if Belichick gets this guy. I don't know what it is about him, and it's a shame, right? It's a shame. So everybody as much as I'm not a huge fan of our GM in Arizona, he made the right move. He took a gamble, and he knew that gamble had to happen, right? He knew that gamble had to happen with Steve also Wilkes as our manager, because between him and Rosen, it was just like a quarterback who couldn't get it done and a defensive-minded coach. So of course you have to change that. So I don't understand people when they just don't dig deeper into it, and it's just a shame. It's a shame. That guy needs to get better, or he's going to be out the league, or he'll be a backup for his whole career. And you know what? The more he's a backup, the more bitter he's going to get. I'm telling you about that. Next up, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers, right? Again, Arizona played the San Francisco 49ers extremely well last year. Extremely well. When they got Drake, it was even more impressive. However, the San Francisco 49ers were doing things with, honestly, there wasn't so many amazing name receivers. They had a rookie in Samuel, and it wasn't like they were sitting there with like a Calvin Johnson type player and they had it. They were doing things with all different types of receivers every other week. Okay, it was very impressive, and they had 3 running backs doing different things, whether somebody was hurt or Shanahan would pick each week. So now, let me tell you something. That's why I wanted CeeDee Lamb, but even if Arizona gets CeeDee Lamb, it doesn't matter. There's still 2 more receivers, right? There's 3 amazing receivers in the draft that's going to be first, right? And whether San Francisco's after Judy, whether they go after Ruggs, whether they go after Lamb, depending on who's there, San Francisco's going to get themselves a really solid player, because all 3 of those guys can play. And that's going to be dangerous for other teams, because now you already know Samuel's a monster, right? The guy is just powerful. He's not scared of anything. And if you put one of those other receivers who probably is going to be very successful in the NFL, San Francisco is going to be ridiculously hard to play. That is a tough thing. Now, look, every year it doesn't matter. Sometimes you can go, remember all of a sudden when Colin Kaepernick San Francisco was in the championship, and everybody was like, "Wow, San Francisco has a bright future." Shit happens. It does. You never know what can happen. Jimmy can get hurt like he did a few years ago. Things can change, and everything can be out. So I'm not saying that they're guaranteed to go to the championship, but I'm telling you, they're scary. So anytime, if they can get another receiver, whether it's going to be a number one or number two or 1A, whatever you want to say, San Francisco will be a very, very scary team with any one of those three receivers. That's why, for me, Arizona, Seattle got it, right? They made that right move by getting Metcalf. Metcalf, what he does is he's this takeover player. He's a big guy that can make big plays, and you need that, right? Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. Kyler reminds me of Russell. He really does. A fast guy who knows when to run, and he's just going to get better. So Russell Wilson is such a phenomenal player. He knows he needs those guys, and sometimes he never really had great receivers beside Baldwin and them. So I'm looking for, from Arizona, you got Seattle, who's really tough. I think the Rams are going to take a step back. That's the truth. But you got Seattle that's really tough, and you got San Francisco that's even freaking tougher, right? Seattle and San Francisco are right there. Seattle can beat San Francisco. They should have had them that time too, right? They should have been. That last game of the year was a lot different. So what I'm looking for is Arizona. They made the move for Hopkins, right? So that'll cancel out. But what I'm looking for is not only just an offense that can sit there. You can't just have one guy, right? You can't have one guy who is this dominant receiver. You need to have 1 and 1A, right? And I'm not saying Larry's 1A anymore. He will put up amazing numbers like he always does. But you need that 1 and 1A to do it. And that will always get it, right? Kansas City had a lot of players last year playing hard for them, right? If it wasn't Tyreek Hill, then Sammy Watkins stepped up. Sammy Watkins played really well when he was healthy. You always need another guy who can make big plays. And if you remember, Sammy Watkins was a freaking beast before that. The guy just couldn't stay healthy. So you need that. You need those two type receivers that can make big plays. And the reason is if you have a great cornerback and he takes DeAndre Hopkins out, or at least plays him well, now you have a really number one receiver or 1A, like I said, playing against a cornerback who isn't so good. So then all of a sudden you got the advantage. Having one receiver doesn't always necessarily mean that it's going to do it. If you're not, look at the Texans last year, right? When Fuller was out, it was tough, right? Kenny Stills was doing good, but he isn't that type of player. You need somebody to make big plays. You definitely do. Even with Antonio Brown, who was amazing. Schuster was doing really well when all the attention was on Brown. But look what happens when Brown leaves. Schuster all of a sudden can't do that stuff, right? It's a big difference when you're going up against the number 2 cornerback and then going up against a guy who can really put pressure on you, right? And look no more than New England cornerback. Like when Gilmore's on somebody, forget it. You're not doing anything. You'll get your catches, but it's not going to be to a point where it's going to make a huge impact. You have to have other players doing well. That's why, for me, the Titans, if the Titans could get a couple good receivers, then that would have been really scary because Henry was doing everything. But you need more receivers, right? You need guys who can make plays, not guys who can just catch the ball. You need playmakers. And when you have playmakers, you always have a legit shot at winning. Now we can go to defense, right? Talking about San Francisco's defense is a huge reason why. Bosa is a freaking animal. So anytime your offense doesn't score and your defense can go a 3 and out, eventually you know what's going to happen. So that's where Arizona needs to that's what people need to understand also, that how many times Arizona was doing something and whether they kicked the field goal, they're missed, and their defense come and give up 7 points, and all of a sudden now you're down 14. It's a big uphill climb. But if your defense comes and makes a 3 and out and gets you the ball back, things change. So you got to be able to build this team in the correct way, right? So you look at the Chargers, for example, Phillip Rivers, thank God they're finally going to get a different quarterback, because how many times that guy messed up the game is unbelievable. And another one where one series you're like, wow, this guy is fucking great. He still has it. And then the next series, I'm just like, well, I watched him last year. I was having my fantasy throw a jump ball to Austin Eckler, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And he threw a pick to lose the game. It's like some of the things that he doesn't make sense. So you need quarterbacks that know how to make the correct decision. And to me, one of the best players that's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is phenomenal. That guy just, he knows when to run, he knows when to throw the ball away. That's why I'm hoping Kyler Murray could be like Russell Wilson. Because if he is, we have a Hall of Famer on our hands. And that's what Cliff said yesterday, that Kyler is just going to get better, right? Last year he made some obvious mistakes, and some of it honestly wasn't his fault, right? It was just sometimes he was trying to do too much, because I felt bad for the guy. He was either running for his life or nobody was open. And you have to depend on Larry do everything. And it's not fair to Larry. You know, the guy cannot continuously be a number one all the time. The guy is getting older and he's still great. That's the amazing thing. He's still great. So again, if you gotta build teams, that's why I'm kind of scared of the San Francisco 49ers, because getting Lamb or getting Judy or getting Ruggs, whatever they want to say, regardless, they're going to do extremely well. But who I don't want them to have is Lamb. The last thing we need, Arizona or anybody in the league needs, is two guys that can break tackles and their yards after catch is ridiculous. Having Samuel and Lamb on the opposite side of each other with Jimmy, with that blocking, and their running backs is terrifying as it is, right? It's definitely going to be tough. And Emmanuel Sanders last year, he did all right, but he didn't play the way Emmanuel Sanders could play. Whether he's getting older or he's injured or he didn't fit, regardless of what. But getting a playmaker for San Francisco automatically makes them the favorite to me. That's the truth. Let me know what you guys think, and talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.